Presented by the Making Star Wars Podcasting Network. This is the Cantina Cast, your watering hole for thought-provoking Star Wars discussion, character dissections, quote and scene analysis, honest opinions on the Star Wars news that interests you, and whatever else these guys come up with. Here are your hosts, Mike and Joao.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. This is the Leia psychology episode, and of course, it's me, Mike, and I'm always, as always, joined by Joao. Joao, say hello to the fine folks.
Hello there.
And of course, we are joined by our friend Adam. Adam, should I be calling you Dr. Adam? I don't know. Are you a doctor now, or are you just
No,
no?
No, I'm not a doctor. Still master's level.
Oh, all right. Well, at some point, we got to call you a doctor, right?
Nah, that's not really me.
All right. Oh, of course, we are joined by your sister, Audrey. Is she a doctor? Should we be calling her Dr. Audrey? I think. No?
Nope. I'm just about the same level as my brother.
Oh, all right. Well, I thought we were going to call you guys. I'm going to call you doctors anyway. That's what I'm going to do. But anyway, Joe, I'm going to throw it to you first because I ignored you when we had Katie on a few times when you wanted to get your point across. So I figured I'd give it to you and you can start the show. So go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were trying to come up with the next who we wanted to do for psychology. And we thought like, hey, we're going to do Han. And then that kind of put on the back burner because they're going to do a Han Solo movie. So let's just kind of wait on that and then see where we go. And we had another character in mind, but we want to wait until a little closer to a certain movie that's coming out later this year before we record and release that. So we wanted to get Adam back on the show. And we said, well, who can we do? And I said, well, what about Leia? Because I was like, I don't know that necessarily anything's wrong with her. We diagnosed Kylo Ren. We diagnosed Darth Vader. They have these laundry list of defects and mental problems. And
well, she is a Skywalker, so that she's got that going against her. So,
Well, but we don't see her leaning in these ways that they do. She doesn't give in, and she's not perceived. I mean, she is this strong character. So I just thought, maybe from the opposite end of the spectrum, instead of talking about what's wrong with people, maybe we could do a psychology episode about what's right with people. Now, I'm not saying Leia doesn't have any faults, and I'm not saying we're not going to get into some of her flaws here today, but I thought maybe, just maybe, we could look at it from the other end of the spectrum here a little bit. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I mean, because they're, not everybody's got, a mental disease here. And even in Star Wars, not everybody does maybe. So I might be wrong. Maybe we'll get a diagnosis for her or something. But I guess that's where I kind of wanted that was my idea for this episode. And then we get a hold of Adam and he says, hey, well, my sister does this for a living too. We were both like, yeah, great. Let's do it. So that's why we have both of them on the show today.
Excellent. So let's start with Adam. Adam, where do you want to go with Leia to start the show here? So give us your expert opinion, Dr. Adam.
Well, first of all, we always do a disclaimer. Either Audrey or I are here representing a board or an organization or anything like that. We're just here as individuals. Don't take anything as healthcare advice or diagnosing advice. Please don't do that.
See that you really are a doctor because you're really coming in and telling it how it is. So, and that's true. Yes, of course. See, but go ahead, continue, Adam. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Right.
If you think you have any issues, please contact the show. We'll direct you to some referrals in your local area. Leia is really tough. I was a little nervous when you guys said that we should do a psychology episode on her because she does tend to have really high functioning. She functions perfectly throughout the movies. You don't see her break down. She is always continuing and always going. She doesn't just fall apart like Luke continuously does all the time. She doesn't really have that. It's kind of interesting. So I did want to kind of bring my sister on for that, give us some pointers on maybe if she sees her breaking down in a different way that I don't.
All right. Well, Joa, where do you want to start first, sir? So please ask the question.
Well, I mean, I kind of wanted to just focus on, because we're talking about her being strong. So we see those moments of her being strong because of bad things kind of happening in her life. So really the first really horrible thing. She gets taken by the Empire and she's held captive and tortured and all that, but really it's Alderaan blowing up right in front of her face. Her father's there, family is down there, people she knew. This is the planet she grew up on. And she, kind of hangs her head a little bit. And, obviously there's some remorse there. She's sad, but at the same time, she's able to kind of keep going. And I compare it to when Luke sees Obi-Wan get killed just a little bit later in the movie, and Leia just lost her whole planet, and she's the one comforting Luke, putting the kind of that blanket over his shoulders and comforting him. He's lost one person. She's lost her entire planet of people. How many thousands of people did she probably know, being a senator and met and her father. Luke's known Obi-Wan for 2 minutes, and she knew her father, adopted father, her whole life, and now he's gone too. So I guess that's where I kind of wanted to start and just talk about this perseverance that she shows right off the bat.
All right, Audrey, any opinion on how strong she is when we first see her, when she's consoling Luke after she just witnessed her father, her adopted father, get blown away, and her adopted mother as well, friends, family, all that stuff. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what you're describing there is a good capacity to do what's called compartmentalizing. She's just had horrible trauma happen to her, but compartmentalizing means, okay, I'm in survival mode here, or I have this task in front of me, or now is not the right time to break down and process this trauma, so I'm going to sort of put it in a box and put it over here on the side. And what we hope is that later she would go back to that and process it, but we don't see her doing that while she's still in survival mode. And I look at that as a strength, because it is what she had to do at the time.
Okay, Adam, any thoughts to your sister's opinion?
I think she's spot on with that one. It definitely is compartmentalizing. She's just, I can't deal with this. I got to do this. I got to deal with this. She's going into helper mode. That's awesome. I kind of wonder if this is like a deeper thing. Like maybe she never feels her own feelings and she's always focusing on other people, or if it's just at this moment. I don't really know if we see many other gentle or vulnerable pieces of her. I think we see a lot more later on, but in this first movie, she's not really vulnerable at any moment. She's pretty much angry through the entire movie.
Very much like her real father, I would assume. I mean, but Anakin, obviously he cared about people, but he didn't go to the extremes that we see. Leia doesn't go to those extremes that like Anakin did, where he would do something. I don't know, because we've always said before on the show, Joa, that she reminds us more of Anakin than her mother, which is interesting.
Mike, is it there different levels of extremes? Like is it there different spectrums of going to that? I mean, she's obviously not going to be. She doesn't know she really has that power. Anakin can walk into a room and obliterate everybody. Leia probably could too if she was trained up to do it. But my point is that I'm not saying she would do that, but I'm saying the ability to do it. She's probably not aware she has the ability to kind of walk in the room and snap her fingers and everybody's neck could break or something. So I guess Anakin always dealt with it in a different way. And how did he do it? Because Padme was the politician, and obviously Padme is Leia's mother. So, I mean, part of that, genetically, inherently, probably comes from Padme a little more. Anakin is run in and get things done, which maybe we'll get into this in just a second. But Anakin's more like a Han Solo. It's like, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just going to run in and do what needs to be done and shoot. And we see that in A New Hope. And Han just runs down the hall and is shooting at the stormtroopers before he hilariously has to start running back and things like that when they're all chasing him down. So, but it's really that it's a different mentality of how you approach things, I think, with the way I see Leia. And I guess we'll go with the next topic here, Mike, is to me, this is like the next big shocking moment for Leia where I'm not really aware of if she knew she was adopted at this point. I don't know how well that was discussed in Legends or the old EU, whatever you want to call it. But either way, we've got it here where Luke reveals that not only is Darth Vader my father, but we're brother and sister, so that means that Darth Vader is your father too. And
yeah, but they didn't, like, that moment, it didn't seem to hit her that hard. Again, I guess this is, I'll go to Audrey here.
What? But
Yeah,
Mike,
go ahead.
I mean, something hit her hard there, because this is a time we see her actually cry. She doesn't want to tell Han, and then Han gets mad at her, and then she's like, just hold me. It's very reminiscent. Lucas does this scene again with Padme and Anakin, when they get into a fight, just hold me. It's he kind of repeats that process. But this is the time when she is upset and she is vulnerable. But what is she upset about? That Luke is running away to confront Vader, and she may never see him again.
That's how I saw it.
Or is it a mixture of things?
I didn't see it that way. I didn't see it as like, Vader's my father. It's almost like, as Audrey said earlier, she puts it on the back burner and kind of, deals with it later. I don't think at that point, she was more concerned about Luke. But I don't know, Audrey, what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, she might have been processing some stuff about her family up until that time. I mean, obviously there was what happened with Alderaan and all that. And for a person to have the kind of strength that she has, I tend to think that she must have learned some of that in childhood. That's usually the case. So she possibly had very good relationships with her adopted parents, and it might have been more about her adoptive parents and what her childhood and her family meant to her. Now here's a whole new piece of information about her family and who she is and where she comes from, and that's a lot to process at the time, and she may not have really been able to process it piece by piece. It might have just been a lot and been overwhelming. That's all I can imagine of what that might have been.
Well, I guess Bail, her father, trained her in a way to be that strong, staunch politician, and almost like the English way, where you don't show your emotions kind of thing. You're always strong, right. I guess you could say. And so, yeah, and comparing to real world psychosis, I guess you could say, is there something where a person could just like put these things on the back burner? I guess, like you said, it's survival mode, or is it something more than just survival mode? Is it just that's just the way the person is, or they can just kind of, I don't know, almost like go up into the fourth dimension and kind of like look at it and then just kind of carry on and move on and whatnot. So, Audrey, any more thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it could be one way or the other. I do look at her and think, maybe there is a little bit much of that with her, to be able to compartmentalize the kinds of enormous traumas that she can compartmentalize. We could just be seeing a lot of resiliency there, or we could be seeing a tendency to compartmentalize in times when it might not be appropriate. So a tendency to bury your feelings, hide your feelings, and not really deal with them even when the time is appropriate. So I'm not really sure which one of those it is with her.
Okay, Adam. Now, we did Obi-Wan, and we came to the conclusion that he had a post-traumatic stress disorder, like the old war veteran, and they're shocked and all this other stuff. Is this kind of how Leia is too? Could we compare it to that as well? Like, could we, look at it that way instead of just compartmentalizing things? And wow, I said that word. I'm awesome today, and stuff like that. What do you think, Adam?
There's the same level of risk there. Obi-Wan went through war. He saw people die. Leia went through, I think by the time we get to Jedi, it's 4 years, I want to say, from New Hope?
Yeah, about that. Give or take.
She's been through 4 years of war. She's elevated to, I think, general at this point. I can't remember. Shame on me. But that's okay. She's been through all this war. Her family is dead. Everyone she's ever known is dead. She gets hit with multiple things over and over and over. She has the risk factors for PTSD, but she doesn't really show, to me, any of the signs of it. She's able to engage in relationships pretty well. She's still working. Everything's going great. I don't really see that as much with her. It's kind of weird. And I'm right there with Audrey. I can't tell with her if it's a good thing and she's just super resilient, or if she's just putting it in a jar, closing the jar, putting it in a closet, and sort of like locking the closet so she doesn't have to think about it. And then 40 years from now, the closet's going to be overflowing.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. But see, in Bloodlines, in the novel Bloodlines, it's finally revealed to the galaxy, at least, that Vader's her father. And I assume we find out when she finds out in Return of the Jedi in Bloodlines that, she came to terms with it. Of course, there's the old EU story where she talked to Anakin's Force Ghost or something like that, and they came to some sort of family agreement, I guess you could say. But, in between that, she seems to play off it. Like, she dresses in black in Bloodlines at this gala or whatever, and she's got black on. She plays with it too. Now, Adam, my question to you is this another defense mechanism where she would be like, all right, I am either, is it like I embrace Vader, or is it more of like being proactive in defending yourself and kind of making other people, feel uncomfortable about it instead of you? Is that?
That's a good question. I don't think I could see her embracing Vader at that point.
No. Well, this took 30 years later. This is with Bloodline.
Yeah.
So when she's dressing up like that, I don't know. What do you think? Is it more of a defense thing, or?
It's possible. I think she's thumbing her nose at everyone more than anything. Her attitude through the first 3 movies was pretty much, if you don't like it, you can shove it. The first time they meet her, she's pretty much yelling at them, shooting, and it says, pretty much stay here, drop dead, whatever, and she jumps in.
Well, she was in control the whole time.
Absolutely.
That's, she's the one who actually rescued everybody, not the boys. But well, continue.
So
sir.
when I see, when you see her wearing all black, sort of like shoving people's noses in it, I think it's pretty much like, this is it. You can deal with the fact, or you can get out of my face. That's pretty much it. We're not going to just dance around it and pretend it's not there anymore.
I guess that's not a bad thing, Joe, to kind of take charge and poke fun of what people are going to be snickering about behind your back while you're there. You know what I mean? So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? Yeah.
Yeah. I was just, I guess it's just that's a matter of maybe philosophy more than psychology, if I can say that. I don't know. At least I see it that way, is how are you going to deal with it? Obviously maybe the two intertwine at a certain point there, even with things like that. So maybe it's not a clear definition there, but I was just, I'm reading Game of Thrones, and, Tyrion, everybody calls him the Imp because he's a dwarf, and they call him the Imp to hurt his feelings. But, he tells Jon Snow, he tells him on the show too, in the book, it goes a little bit further, and he says, don't let them have that ammunition, embrace it. If they want to call you Lord Snow to mock you, basically, then let them embrace the name. I've embraced the name Imp. So there maybe there is a possibility that she would do something like that. She's like, you think you're going to hurt me? Because the Republic does. She's with the Resistance, when we see her in The Force Awakens, not the Republic necessarily, which is, I guess, some kind of weird extension of the Republic. But she's not a senator. She's not a senator anymore. And they shun her because of this lineage. And over time, this happens. And, she's shamed for it, basically. But, it's as much as you can try to take control of that yourself, if people call you something, what else can you do? You can't go and punch everybody in the face and get in a fight with everybody, because just thinking of it as a real world thing, we can't go running around shooting blasters at people, Mike. You can, and you're going to end up in jail or dead, and that's the end of it. So a real solution to it is, and I think this is more maybe a high school kind of mentality, because I think once we
but you're human. At the end of the day, we're all like this. Even in offices, you get like this.
Yeah,
so.
But we leave that environment where you're getting made fun of constantly. Now with social media, it's opened up this whole new perspective of that you probably could still be in this vacuum of people making fun of you if you're in the wrong groups. But anyway, I digress. My point is that you can either let them use it as ammunition against you, or you can turn the tables. And I guess it's just a matter of how you want to deal with that. Either you can ignore it, or you can turn it into your own ammunition. And maybe to your point, maybe she's maybe she is using it as her own ammunition. I'm not really sure either.
Well, because she seems to use her sarcasm like as she always does when she's in a situation, almost like Han. Han does the same thing. Luke, to a degree, I guess you could say, kind of, that humor, using the humor to kind of relieve the tension of the tension, I guess you could say.
And I think
well, yes, that's
well.
very,
so, but
yeah.
No, not trying to get into technicalities, but there you go.
Well, it's one and the same as Carrie said. She's me and I'm her, and that's just the way it is. Now, Audrey, just I don't know if this happens in the realm of mental health and stuff when you're speaking to someone and you're trying to help someone. And I don't want to get into the real world aspect of it here because it's a fictional character. It's not real life in a way. But if someone's been through so much traumatic stuff, my home planet's blown up, say, not that would happen here. Well, maybe it will happen someday. But, you see your group of people get wiped out. You find out you have a long lost brother that, is also, you have an evil father and all these other horrible things that happen. Isn't there a point? There's got to be a breaking point with someone where, I mean, granted, like you said, we don't see it off camera. But, I mean, no one can be that strong where they go through all of this and not feel anything under the sun. Like, I mean, it's got to hit someone at some point, like even uncontrollably, like where they would just kind of just break down and go cuckoo, I guess you could say. Is that's even though that's not a really technical name. But, Audrey, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. At some point, there's a breaking point. I think that's probably true for pretty much everyone. But if the breaking point is, gathering up your strength and courage and putting on this harder exterior, that involves probably burying your feelings more and more, which is she's probably doing some of that. But we don't see her fall apart. We don't see her decompensate, even at that point. And again, she's still in crisis mode. She's still in get things done mode. And maybe she's just escalating. Okay, people are reacting to me differently. I need to try something different. I need to escalate this whole hard exterior image that I have going on. She does seem the type that has a philosophy of do what you need to do to get things done.
Okay, Adam, now, any opinions on that as well? Do you share anything?
Oh, boy, it's tough. She's the strongest character, I think, in the trilogy. Both of the men, Luke is, I don't know, I really like Luke, don't get me wrong, but he's just like the weakest of the three. Han, I can't call him the strongest of the three because he waffles so hard and he's so selfish, but Leia, I think, is easily the strongest here. And that just shines through so much to me, so seeing her do that, yeah, I think I definitely agree with Audrey on her points there.
Okay. Joe, where would you like to go next, sir?
Well, okay. I mean, we can get into and we've talked about this before a little bit on when we did the Leia dissection and maybe even the Han dissection in reverse, talking about, but let's talk about from Leia's perspective. And we didn't obviously have you two guys on and your opinions with this, but let's talk about raising a child with Han Solo. Let's just go into Fantasyland here for a minute because we don't really know what was going on. We've kind of guessed at maybe what was going on. There's been Adam Driver has been known to say some things in interviews that there could have been some neglect issues, which Adam was guessing at on the Kylo Ren psychology way back in February of 2016.
Well, it's not just even Han as a parent and Leia. It's also Anakin, Luke, there's a lot of people he's following in the footsteps or raising that type of child with those expectations. But continue, sir.
Well, but Adam Driver kind of affirms Adam's suspicions here that there was some parental neglect going on, at least as far as apparently Ben needed some extra tender, some extra TLC, I guess you could say, right? And I don't think that he got that, and Adam Driver's kind of confirmed that in interviews and said that was like a cause that could have. So I guess throwing all that into a pot, and you guys can talk on the relationship between Han and Leia too if you want to, but just the whole dynamic between, because I know you've got some notes down here between they're kind of exact opposites, but they also have some things in common that kind of connect them and make them attracted to each other. And opposites attract, that old cliche. So, but the main point here is raising a child with Han Solo from Leia's perspective. So I know that's a big, huge bowl of fruit salad I just threw everywhere. But fruit is good, and let's talk about it.
All right, we'll throw it to Audrey first. Audrey, anything to say?
Well, I think that relationship overall is an interesting one to look at, just because we have the character Leia, who, yes, she has flaws, but overall looks relatively healthy. And then she chooses a relationship with a person who, doesn't look up front to be the safest person to really be vulnerable with, and certainly to build a life with. And they do, and people build good marriages out of an imperfect start all the time. But we do see some of the effects of that, possibly in The Force Awakens. We can speculate, what happened with Ben, what connection does that have to the relationship that they had, and does that have something to do with something to do with, on Han's end, things that are going on there. A healthy person building a relationship with someone who's coming in with some of the tendencies that Han has. That's a difficult thing to do, and I wonder what their strategy was for that.
That's a really good point.
Well, Adam, go ahead.
No, that's a really good point. I'm just laughing because that she says what their strategy was. I'm sitting here like, I could see Leia creating like a strategy with a PowerPoint, and Han just
Right?
like, no, I'm going to sit over here and clean my gun, and I don't know, can't hear you, la la la.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, well, is Leia? I'll throw this to you, Adam. Or maybe I should throw it to your sister. Maybe she's probably got a better perspective on this than either of us would, or even Joa. Is the fact that, okay, Leia kind of, in a way, Han is somewhat like her father, and kind of falls for the bad boy, or someone that was like Anakin in a sense. Is this some kind of a thing in her back of her mind psychologically, because she grew up around all the prim and proper guys, I assume, on Alderaan and whatnot. So I wonder if this is just her way of, that teenage thing of like, oh, okay, my dad wouldn't approve of me dating this person, so I'll just date this guy, and then things happen and they go from there. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it very well could be that. She's pretty young at the time, but also when she first meets Han, she does have what I think is a pretty healthy reaction, which is, maybe this isn't the best person to really trust and get close to.
Yeah,
she
true.
reacts to him pretty appropriately, but over time, especially, I kind of noticed that her attitude towards him did start to change around the time that she lost her home planet, and I wonder if just some of the stuff that she was going through at the time made her more vulnerable to making some less than healthy choices there.
No, that's true. That's a different. We didn't. I don't think I even took into factor, Joa, there, and that, or Adam, that she just lost her planet, and now she's kind of clinging to this male figure who's kind of independent, and he's full of himself and everything, but he's a strong male figure, I guess, in her life at that time. So she kind of maybe latched onto that. And Luke, as you said, was kind of.
Well, could I say this, Mike?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that, but in the same way, she also latches on to Luke. She cares about both of them tremendously. And we can see that, she's worried on Hoth when Luke went missing and Han goes out. And now both of them are out there, and R2 is saying the survival rating, and it's like, shut up, 3PO, and all this stuff. And it's just like, don't tell me that. That's like horrible news. And they shut the gate, and she's, we can see some emotion there from her that we don't always get to see. And so it's both of these people, like, she's once again, and she doesn't know Luke is her brother at this point, and I would hope not, because she kisses him later. But my point is
well,
that
that's
she
a
is
psychology
once again,
episode for something later on, but go ahead.
Yeah, we'll get more into a Game of Thrones thing with all of that, because, but anyway, my point is that she's kind of, again, she, was adopted, and now again, she's here kind of adopting her own family, and she's, like, this is my new family. It's this small, rebel fleet, because she was an Imperial senator before this. She wasn't openly in the rebellion in A New Hope. It wasn't until after, when she was basically exposed for being a rebel, that now she is in open rebellion, and she is a rebel. Like, she's openly a rebel now. So that's something else to think about. Like, she was also had this big facade going on. So now she can be close to them, and she's in the war basically with them at this point, and she's with Han, she's with Luke all the time, she's with the droids, she's with Chewie, and now this is her new family. And we can sit here and talk about how strong and independent Leia is, but at the same time, you can be as strong and as independent as you want, but you still need a support system on some level. Am I right, Audrey and Adam? I don't know who you want to go to first here, Mike, but I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, we'll go to Audrey. She's the guest, the woman of the Cantina cast here. So go ahead, Audrey.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point about how she sort of latched onto these other people. She's lost her family, and that could be just flexibility on her part. Resilient, healthy people tend to be flexible and adapt to their situation. And for all that we've been talking about her, she's strong, and she hides her feelings and things like that. Especially in her relationship with Luke, I can see some healthy vulnerability there, which is good. Where she's lost the support system that's important to her, but now she's going to turn and try to have something else in that place, and she's open to that. She's not completely shut off emotionally from other people at this point, and that's probably the best choice she could have made about that at the time, I think.
And Adam, now I'll just say this before I get to you, Adam, here, is it's interesting that Han, kind of knowing at this point that, they're both in competition, wink, wink, so to speak, for the princess, so to speak. But Han, because he knows that he cares for Luke so much that he goes out and risks his life to save her as well. And maybe that actually accelerates her love for Han even more. But any more thoughts on what Joe had to say earlier? Adam, go ahead.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, the more time she spends on the Falcon, the more she likes Han. And we know that.
Well, that's true.
Lucas
it's a matter
really
of logistics,
we know
really.
that Lucas is really into classic cars from his other movie, American Graffiti. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just a Falcon thing.
Maybe. It could be. But let's get into the family aspect here with, raising the child that's going to basically a Skywalker, and, part of Alderaan in a way, even Bail Organa and all that legacy there. Now, as a father, I know, not that my family has all this great history like the Skywalkers or anything like that, but, trying to raise your kid right is a big thing with a parent. You kind of worry about it all the time. I do. Am I going to screw this up or that up? Now, I can imagine with Leia, knowing she's going into a relationship with a guy that's, kind of full of himself, isn't exactly one to be tied down or whatever. He kind of wants to go do his own thing. And from what we get in Bloodlines and that, he kind of did that. He got into the racing and all this other stuff. And I imagine maybe Leia kind of regrets this, or maybe this is like something that's on her mind later on when we get to The Force Awakens, where she's like, did I do this wrong? Should I have not gone down this path or that path? And maybe Ben wouldn't have gone to the dark side and then all this other stuff. So, Adam, I'll throw it right to you first. Your thoughts on that? Raising the child that's a Skywalker, Solo, Organa, every name you want to, go from there.
I do really question how involved she was in raising him, just because she shows so much. She shows that she's so invested in the galaxy. Right? The well-being of the galaxy is her only priority. Everything else is second to that, or kind of creeps in on that, and she has to keep beating it back. And with Luke, or with Ben going down the path that he does, I really wonder where she was, how invested she was, how much time she spent with him, how much time he was in daycare instead, or was raised by C-3PO. That would screw anyone up to be raised by C-3PO. So
I prefer R2 personally myself.
I would too. I think he at least has more fighting moves.
And he's just funnier. He's a wise ass.
And he curses more. Every word he says has to be bleeped out of the movie.
Exactly. Audrey, any thoughts on that as well? being a parent, I imagine that Leia, looking back on things, is she regretting this? Is she blaming herself? And we do see the one time I guess we could see a bit of her breaking down to a degree is in The Force Awakens when Han gets, impaled by his son, and we'll get into that in a moment, is where she finally kind of maybe she's having that moment of, oh, great, I messed up here or something like that. I don't know. What do you think, Audrey?
Yeah, I mean, I think for any parent who watches the child that they raise make those choices, any parent would question that about themselves. What did I do wrong? Did I mess up here? Did I mess up there? So I'm sure she is questioning that. I mean, two really important things with parenting to create a good attachment with your child is emotional warmth and acceptance, and then instilling confidence in the child. And when you do those two things, you've got a really good start and a really good relationship to build with that child. I wonder how she did with the emotional warmth part. I wonder.
Well, that's true, because it's funny because then she turns into basically like Han in a way where she's just doing her thing and he's doing his thing. Maybe that's where the real connection is. They're actually more the same than they're not. Joe, any thoughts to this?
I mean, at some point, I guess, it's like you think of Leia and it's just on the very surface, I guess, before we started this conversation, and it's just positive, positive, positive. She's so strong and she's going on and she perseveres. And at some point, I mean, maybe, and we'll find out, and this is speculation, with Ben and everything. And, and I guess you could call it a form of neglect. I mean, I'm not saying we're not talking about starving the kid and things like that, but it's just a kind of maybe an emotional detachment or a neglect or something. Maybe that's possibly what could have happened here, is more where I'm thinking or leaning or speculating. And not necessarily like I'm just going to leave you laying on the floor and I'm going to walk in the other room and get on the phone or something. I don't think it was something like that. But I just think that it was just, obviously we see the way Kylo is, and he's not, I don't know. I mean, in a way he's like Anakin and he's wanting to spill his guts because it's like, just give me a reason, give me an opportunity to spill my guts and I will. I saw that with Anakin in episode 3 when he tells Palpatine, he says, I know there are things about the Force they're not telling me. And to me, that was screaming, tell me more. I'm trying to initiate a conversation, but I'm a little bit afraid. I'm a little bit awkward to do that. Can you tell me more? Because we've been having conversations lately, and can you tell me a little bit more? And I feel like that Ben is sort of like that because he compared to Anakin, and Anakin can't talk to Obi-Wan about that. He can't completely open up. He can't tell Obi-Wan, hey, I'm married. Padme's pregnant. He can't tell him all those things, and Anakin's shutting all those things in, and Kylo shutting all those things in. And so where did Kylo learn all of that from? Because we know Han Solo's shutting it all in. Well, Leia doesn't want to see me. So he's just avoiding every situation he possibly can. He doesn't even, they'll get you to Leia. We're still technically married. We never got divorced, but she don't want to see me. So it's just, where did he learn it? He learned it from Han Solo. He learned it from Leia because I think that that's probably something they have in common. So I think when you look at Leia, and as strong as we say she is, and all of these positive things, and she is a positive female role model and all of those things. But if we're going to look at something that is a flaw in her, possibly speculating, it is that maybe she is too harsh and not motherly enough. Well, I don't want to go too far with this. And because somebody listening might get, might fly off the handle here and get offended by what I'm saying. I'm a little I don't want to be too skeptical and too cynical here, but
well, I was just going to throw it to Adam and ask Adam. Obviously, in real world, there are mothers that actually don't form a bond with the kid at all. I mean, is this something that maybe possibly could have happened where, you know, she's so maybe the going to the Republic and focusing on that is just one way she can relate to something. Raising a kid, she probably can't, which is ironic because Bale and his wife Bree were probably very loving to her and raised her pretty much right in the way to go. But yet we see the opposite here, where it's almost like it skips a generation type of thing. Is in the real world, do we see that quite often, where the mother just doesn't have that bond, doesn't attach to the kid, and the kid's kind of lost and on his own, and even the father is, the father's just doing the typical stupid fatherly things that we normally do. I'm going to go out and go to the bar with the boys, or something like that, or go to the races or whatever. I don't know. Do we see that in real life? Can we equate Leia in the real life with this, where there's just no attachment?
Sure. Yeah. Here's something to kind of think about is Leia and Han both grew up feeling their feelings and then learning how to compartmentalize and kind of close them away. And then all of a sudden you have these two parents who've been through war together who've completely compartmentalized and locked away their emotions. Now you have this little force-sensitive kid trying to be raised by them, and also his uncle, and they're all telling him, stop feeling, stop feeling. I mean, I don't want to go all like Frozen here, but, don't feel anything. He feels everything constantly all the time. I don't remember any dark side users who throw crying temper tantrums quite the way that Ben does. So I kind of wonder if even just his feelings are rebellions against his parents every time he feels something. I kind of wonder that. And I kind of wonder what that would come from. And yeah, so, two kind of standoffish, cold, distant parents.
Well, isn't this the whole thing with what we talked about with Anakin and wanting family? And maybe we can attribute that to Kylo, and maybe that's, where the neglect kind of comes from. And maybe, but then again, it seems like Luke wanted to train him from new things we've heard. So Luke would be a family member, and yet then he betrays him. But then again, if Snoke's in his ear and Snoke is feels more family than anything he's ever known, then maybe he would go that way. But that's just where I'm kind of going with it, is just with I don't want to turn it into the Kylo Ren part 2 here, but I mean, we're just trying to figure out how things were maybe going, but maybe we've gone too far with that. But I just wonder if there is you talk about skipping a generation where, Anakin is completely obsessed with family. And then, I think that Luke in a way also feels that way, but Leia, because she's been taught and brought up a certain way, going back to Leia, it's, she from a very young age, just like Padme was the queen at 14. Leia was a senator at an extremely, like a stupidly, extremely young age. And she has to grow up. She has to grow up way before Luke does. So, I mean, that's just where I kind of am questioning things here.
Well, I mean, I'll give this to Leia, and because we've been on like a streak of, maybe muddying the waters with her character here, is it seems from the indication that we know of, where she didn't want, at least I interpret it, where she's protecting Ben from joining the Jedi Order, or maybe keeping Snoke out of the picture, where she is guarded, but she's still not around. Now, that seems a little odd to me, Audrey. Is there such a thing where a parent may not be around, but yet I'm still involved with the kid when it comes to these big decisions where, I'm kind of like going to boarding school. I want him to go here or something like that. I don't know. Does that seem pretty odd that, from what I can tell, I guess, she did try to protect Ben to a degree, and obviously something tragic happens, and I don't know if it's just Ben turning to the dark side, which we'll get into in about 2 seconds here. But any more thoughts, Audrey? Anything else to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right there, and for a parent to try to make those decisions with or for their child and say, you need to do this, that needs to be backed up with a pretty strong emotional attachment. Otherwise, the child's going to rebel against that, or isn't going to put much weight behind that, right?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And So we'll get into Ben turning to the dark side. Now, I'm going to throw it back to you, Audrey. I'm sure you've seen cases where the child is just completely, or seems to be completely out of, like the parents can't have any control and things go bad and the kid's just kind of a bad seed, which I think Han kind of thinks Ben is just bad because, he's a Skywalker. It's in his blood. That's just the way he's going to be, all this type of stuff. But as Leia looks at it, how could you handle such a thing where you think, your child does some atrocities, turns on the Jedi Order, turns on your brother, and goes off and joins the dark side and stuff? How would that hit a parent if something tragic like that? How do they deal with that?
Well, I mean, that's typically the case where we see where the parent says, "Fix this child," and in investigating it further, it's usually something going on within the whole family, the structure of the family, or some relationships. And so that is why I continue to look at, okay, what was Leia's relationship with her son? What was Han's relationship with the son? What was Leia and Han's relationship with each other? And any of those can cause a child to act out because there's something wrong going on in the system, and they're trying to either bring attention to that or correct it or escape it or something.
Fair enough. Adam, now, I guess I want to throw it into the death of Han Solo here. I guess we'll get into this where, she didn't see it. She didn't witness it. Of course, through the Force, she felt it. Han died. Her son had just committed this atrocity. I mean, how does one even have to, I mean, is this, when she's there having her moment, is she reflecting on, all right, I just don't know what to do? But she didn't even break there because she still kind of stays in the fight, sends Rey off to find Uncle Luke and all that, or Rey's father there, if you want to go down that road, which I will. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the death of Han Solo and how she reacts to it? Because she's still kind of stoic, really. I mean, she has that moment, and then we see her, with Chewie's sobbing, and she's kind of looking at nowhere, and, then C-3PO comes in. But what are your thoughts on this? I really wonder
how hard it hits her. Like, did she see it coming when she sent him? I don't know.
Because it does seem kind of cold when you think about it. It's not exactly.
Is it possible?
Yeah.
This is total speculation. Is it possible through the Force, maybe she saw two different scenarios happening and didn't know which would happen? And then it was, maybe she was prepping herself for the worst, but she had faith that the best would turn out. Because if she knew for a fact, if she had just had seen Han dying, I don't think she asks him to go do that. I don't think that that's Leia. I don't think that because if that's Leia, then she's basically Snoke at this point. And I'm going to I'll go into my Leia is Snoke theory again, which I don't think is the case.
No.
So my point is it maybe through the Force, maybe she feels that there is a good ending to this. I have to believe that she thinks that there's a possibility for a good ending to that. She doesn't send Han in to die. I can't believe that, and I won't believe that.
Well, I'll just say this. Is it more of when we see her here, like all of that's going on between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and especially because she did send Han off to, bring back their son, and obviously Han failed, and she's obviously going to feel the blame and regret for 30 years of whatever happened here. Audrey, I don't know. What do you think of the death of Han Solo and how she reacted to that?
I mean, I can only imagine that there is a lot of regret happening there. Whether it's justifiable regret or not, that relationship that she valued so much, now there's not a chance for her to repair it. Up until that time, she's got to have been holding on to some hope that would have been repaired. I imagine, just because there does seem to be some feelings left there. And now it's done, and now that chance is gone, and she's already expressed regret for her son, and she still keeps going there, which is really something still.
Okay, Joe. Now, do you think she's having a moment of regret here? What are your thoughts on this? And or is it just that she's been so separated from Han for a while that it doesn't affect her the way she thought it would? Maybe she's trying to figure that out.
I think she's really sad. I think she feels it. I mean, if we're going to look through this, through the prism of Star Wars and the Force and psychology all at the same time, which is, I think, kind of what we sort of kind of have to do. And I don't pretend to understand psychology and mental health, anywhere close to the level that our two guests do. But I think that I have to look through a little bit, talking with Adam all of these times and what I've learned and what I know about Star Wars and what I think I know about these characters is I have to look through it as through the prism of Leia feels that I think she feels both Ben and Han. I think she feels Han dying. I think she feels Ben, Kylo's emotions at the same time. He has that kind of like that moment where he says, whoa, like this isn't what I felt. The novel says this, he didn't expect to feel what he felt. He thought he was going to have one feeling by killing Han Solo, and he had another. I think that Leia feels Ben's emotions. I think she feels Han's emotions at the very, very end while he still is physically capable of having emotions. And then she also feels her own emotions because she is the daughter of Anakin Skywalker, who was born of the Force. So we know Leia has the Force in her. We know she's very strong in the Force. It's a family trait. So I think that she's burdened by this trait because she's never been fully trained like Luke, who's, gone off and done all of his training, over these 30 years and become more fully functional a Jedi and all of these things we have to assume. And he's learned more things beyond what Yoda and Obi-Wan taught him. But Leia has all these raw kind of exploding feelings probably with the Force, something we can't even comprehend on Earth because it's kind of this magical kind of fantasy thing, but it has to play into your mind at the same time. And so she probably feels her own emotions, Han's emotions, Han dying. She might even feel the physical pain of him dying. And she feels her son's emotions. It probably is so overwhelming, but she can't even process it because all of the years of all of the other tortures she's been through, she's sad and it affects her, and you see the effect on her and she hangs her head, but she still can't be broken because it's Leia.
Well, she's the hope. She never really, I guess that's the key. I guess she never loses that hope because she still has the hope to find her brother and go from there. So, I mean, Adam, I'll just throw it to you and then I'll ask Joe where he wants to go or finish the show. Is that the key right there? Is it because she's still always holding on to that hope? Now, hope can be a tricky mistress. She can kind of give you false hope here, but it seems Leia just never believed that. She always believed in the hope and all that stuff. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
About hope, I think that I could be totally off on that, but I think that she just views the good of the entire galactic system and these small things as brutal and devastating as they are to her. I think that may be why she's able to compartmentalize so hard, is because then she turns around and says, okay, how is this going to affect every living person in this galaxy? And what can I do to minimize the damage to them? I think maybe that's the key to her character in some regards.
So it's always the greater good.
I think that's how she gets through.
Her.
She turns around and says, okay, yes, he's dead. I can't deal with that right now because that means this and this and this for these other people. So I'm going to focus on that. And I'm going to try to fix things so that everyone else is okay.
So it's really a defense mechanism, I would think, at the end of the day. I don't know. But, Joe, where do you want to go with the show? Do you want to wrap this up, or what do you want to do, sir?
I've heard a lot, and honestly, some of it was unexpected where this conversation went. I guess I just wanted to get both of their opinions. Do we have a diagnosis here for Leia? Is there something would you sit down with her and talk with her and say, hey, this is, maybe you have this, and maybe we need to go in this direction with your therapy or with your medication or something like that. I'm just wondering, because I wasn't expecting that. So maybe I'll be surprised there, but I just wonder, everything she's been through and the way she reacts to things, and the way we've kind of talked about it today, I've been a little surprised where the conversation's gone, been a good conversation. I just a little surprised by it. So I guess I don't know. I thought maybe Audrey first. And do you think there's a diagnosis here, or how would you, if you were in therapy with Leia, and she was telling you all these things that happened that we just talked about today? I mean, where would you kind of go with that on a preliminary status?
I don't necessarily see a diagnosis attached to her. What I see is possibly some tendencies to repress some emotion, to compartmentalize when it's not appropriate, things like that. And that's resilient, healthy people. It doesn't mean that they're without weakness. You know, we all have weaknesses. We all have things that we can work on in our lives, and that's possibly hers. That she could be more open. That she could allow herself to feel some of the time. That feeling doesn't always have to equal weakness in her mind.
Okay, Adam, do you agree, disagree, or have something, maybe a different aspect of Leia's character? I don't know. What do you think?
Everything she said there, that sounds good to me. Leia could be extremely healthy, and the only thing she would need out of, quote, therapy would be processing and just actually talking about these things, and finally, after all these years, getting them off her chest so she can kind of just take a deep breath of relief and just let it go. One thing that kind of concerns me is that with the other characters, we're able to kind of diagnose them based on their behaviors, based on how the emotions they show us. With Leia, it's so hard because she shows us so few things emotionally about what's going on inside of her. She's so businesslike, she's so professional, she's so compartmentalized that we have to kind of try to diagnose her through how she affects other people emotionally. I don't know, Audrey, what do you think about, like, maybe obsessive compulsive personality disorder? What do you think about that?
Well, obsessive compulsive personality disorder has a lot to do with feelings of guilt. People feel a lot of feelings of guilt with that personality disorder. I don't know. Do you think she's motivated by some guilt?
I kind of wonder. After her planet blows up and they tell her it was kind of her fault, they make her feel like, if you hadn't been in the rebellion, we would have done this. If you'd been smarter this way or thought this way. I wonder if she kind of blames herself for that, whatever, 10 billion deaths, or who knows however much it was. But then closing off those feelings, some of her rigid thinking, the righteous indignation, constantly turning to anger for things when other people either confront her or disagree with her on things. I do kind of wonder if that's there. I would not diagnose her with that, but I'm just kind of ticks a couple of boxes for me, and I just kind of wanted to get your feelings on some of that.
Yeah, and I think that you would have to see her a little bit more outside of crisis mode and in the context of what her relationships day to day really look like. Because maybe she is very focused on, this is the way it has to be, and this is the way I have to be, and I cannot fall short of this standard ever, and that's why I can't have vulnerable feelings. I mean, that's a possibility.
That makes good sense. So basically, until there's like a sitcom, Leia knows best, we're not going to be able to diagnose her.
That's right.
Well, too bad. Well, maybe, I don't know, when we see The Last Jedi, maybe we'll get a little bit more behind the curtain stuff where we can see, maybe she does finally crack and we finally get that emotion. There's a rumored scene with her and Poe, and maybe we finally get that emotional outburst that we've all been kind of looking forward to. But, Joe, just wrapping up here, and I'll throw it to everybody, and I'll start with you, do we still feel that Leia is more Anakin, or do we think maybe she's more Padme in a way? I mean, or is it just both? Is it equal parts of each one, and maybe a bit of Bail and her stepmother, her adopted mother as well? Or is it just Leia's just Leia? I don't know. What do you think?
I think that there's definitely, obviously, a lot of Padme in her. There's definitely some Anakin in her. I mean, that's just, when I look at myself and, compare myself to my parents, I see both. And I don't know who I'm more like. I mean, but I mean, there's not even just personality. There are things that I do that are exactly how they do things. And it's just really weird. And so I have to, and when we look at it from a movie, and even though these movies were made so far apart and maybe George Lucas is that brilliant of a filmmaker where he's like, well, she needs to be this way and Anakin needs to be this way, and that way it's going to kind of explain everything and why the kids act the way they do in certain situations. And I wouldn't have any doubt that is probably the case. And as much flack as he gets, George Lucas actually is quite a genius and a lot of other ways. For we sit here and talk about people having faults and strengths. Everybody likes to point out George Lucas's faults and flaws, but he obviously has a lot of strengths and as well. And that's the way I'm kind of looking at Leia here. That we've talked about all of this, and she's got all of this strength, but no one can be perfect in whether you're writing the character, this fictional character, or you're just a real person here on Earth. Nobody can be perfect. And for all your strengths, for every strength you have, it almost has to expose a weakness that you have. In a way, if you really think about it, I mean, every really strong thing about you probably has something on the other end of the spectrum where it exposes something about you, where somebody could, manipulate you or however you want to view that. But you look at Leia and you look at, and I want to talk about Carrie Fisher just for a minute because we're doing this psychology thing and everybody, she was, and Carrie was so strong though. And she, admitted to the bipolar thing. And I really want to just reiterate how strong she was for coming out about that and admitting her flaws as a person and her weaknesses as a person. And it inspires people to go get mental, health help, and things like that. So I just want to point that out about, Leia, but also Carrie as well. That, she was such a strong person that Carrie admitted to having all these flaws and weaknesses, but she did it at a cost to make people feel like, hey, this is normal. This is normal. You're not abnormal by having mental health issues. You are as normal as the next person. Just go just admit to it and seek that help. And so, talking about Carrie and Leia being kind of intertwining and she enveloped that character, I think that's a way that Carrie showed how strong she was by admitting her weaknesses. So I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Which is interesting because Leia didn't admit really any weaknesses. But Adam, I'll throw it to you. Maybe it's George Lucas is so smart because of Modesto, and maybe that's why we have two smart guests on today. I don't know. Maybe that has something to do with it, Adam. Maybe you Modesto folks, you're just smart people, I guess. I don't know. But what do you think? Is she more like Leia, or is she more like, Padme, or maybe Bail, more like Bail, or Bail and Anakin? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
She has all the good qualities of her mother. I almost want to say she has the strengths of both and the weaknesses mostly of her father. And I want to say that Luke pretty much is just made up of the weaknesses of his mother. I don't know how many strengths he has, but no, I'm so negative on Luke this episode. I think Leia.
We'll save that for the psychology of Luke, because I'm sure it's going to be a bloodbath with him. But come on, ahead.
I think Leia might be my favorite female character ever of any story. She's so complex. She's amazing. Carrie Fisher just portrayed her so well. She has some of the best acting in the movies. She's phenomenal, and she brings this character to life. I think that Leia is a good blend of this raw fury and strength, and she has so many vulnerabilities, but she doesn't sit down and accept them. She doesn't fall apart like the other characters kind of do. She's just, it's just great. I think she has the strengths of both parents, and probably the weaknesses of, her dad, I would say, charging ahead.
Yeah, I still side that she's very much like her father. I don't know, maybe because I'm a father and I have a daughter and she takes after me. So maybe, and I just look at it through that. Whereas my daughter's got very much a lot of me, and which worries me quite a bit. But Audrey, what do you think? Is she more like Anakin? She's more like Padme? Maybe a bit of her adopted father and mother? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I can really see some pieces of all of them in her. I mean, obviously there's a lot of strength that she got from Padme, I think. And with her adoptive parents, I would be very surprised if she didn't have a pretty secure attachment with them, with that, emotional warmth and also instilling confidence, because of the level of resiliency and strength and health that she does have. I thought it was interesting earlier when you said that Leia feels a lot of things. And I wonder if she does get that from Anakin, where possibly she does feel things very deeply, and maybe that's where some overcompensation comes in, and she feels like she needs to be strong and above that. I don't know. But in any case, with whatever weaknesses that she has, and I do think that we see some of those, being healthy and resilient doesn't mean you don't have that. She just sort of, I think she does overall make the best of what she has, because she does remarkable things with her life. She's able to really accomplish what she's trying to accomplish, I think. And I think it's a pretty good picture of resiliency.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. But I still side she's more Anakin than anybody else, and but that'll do it for the show. I'll throw it to you, Adam, and then we'll finish with your sister. But if anyone wanted to look for you guys, Adam, where would they find you on social media if you do that, or whatever?
You'll find me nowhere. Post. I am on Twitter at Adam Smith Author. Writing a book. It'll come out eventually, so look for me there.
Excellent. Anything else, Adam, or is that's it? That's good. All right.
No, I think
All right. Okay. Well, thank you. Audrey, how about you?
I have a Facebook page, Audrey Hanson Counseling, and that's it.
Oh, excellent. All right, Joe. Well, tell them where to like us, find us, and all that other good stuff for us. Because we got a lot of different things to find us, I guess.
Yeah, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at The Cantina Cast, Facebook.com/The Cantina Cast. You can join us on our Discord channel and chat with us, or get in the voice chat with us. We're doing some more live events and doing things like that, and more things are coming down the pipeline on that. And so just check out our social media, or email us at cantinacastfanmail@gmail.com for information on that, or for any other questions. And basically that's it.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll see you guys next week. I want to thank our two guests, Adam and Audrey. Thank you for coming on, and hopefully you guys will come back on, and we'll find another character to pick apart and, all that other good stuff. But thank you for coming on, and we'll see you guys next week. You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.